Andy and Remington Steel Show on a Tuesday night. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show for your home delight. Talking about Age of Sigmar and everything else that is cool. Talking about Warhammer Fantasy, I know the rules. I said ba 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 da 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 da.
Another magnificent intro, Mr. Remington. Welcome, folks, to the Andy and Rem Show, your one-stop shop for all things Age of Sigmar and fantasy wargaming in general, except 9th Age, we don't really talk about that. So, I'm back. I missed last week, and what an incredible show it was, although for some odd reason, it didn't go out live. So there was untold audience interaction that was missed. So to make up for that, we've got the same array of guests back 2 weeks in a row, just to make sure you don't miss any of that tasty interactive goodness. So as you can see, first of all, we've got, who's looking a little bit banana-like at the moment, we've got Dready.
Hi, it wasn't my fault.
Yeah, you're
not to blame.
You're absolved of all blame for the technical hitches that took place last week, and I can confirm that this episode is going out live. So, there we go. And of course, our other guest, Amy, the legendary painter who has become legendary in the space of about several months, really, birthed onto the scene. Hello there. How are you this evening?
How are you doing?
I think we're all quite radiant this evening, and of course, we've got Mr. Remington over there with his wonderful musical goodness that greeted you all. And how are you, Mr. Remington?
It's a great pleasure to have you back on the show. I'm grinning from ear to ear.
I've actually got a bone to pick with a couple of the audience members from last week, because at least 2 people said it was the best show ever. Now, I would suggest that the fact that I wasn't on it would automatically prevent it from being the best show ever.
Well,
Maybe top 10. Maybe.
It boosted my channel over 400 subs, even though it wasn't even on my channel, so...
Now, I assume that's over 400 total. You didn't get 400 new subs just from that.
I got 403 subs in total from the last show. I had 0 subscribers yesterday at the start of the last show.
I'm not sure that's entirely true. So anyone who did say last week was the best show ever will have any platinum membership they had rescinded, unless they're a patron, in which case I'm not going near them. Don't insult those people. So let's whiz through who we've got in the audience this week, shall we? And more people are piling in. So Olsberry got the first comment, which has since disappeared, but still gets the honour. YouTube Newbie, of course, Dead Gamer, Bazooka J Rambo, Malt Graffelman, Ratface, which is an amazing name, Graham Rigg, Mr. Beholder, Matthias Matson, Sean Donnelly, David Smith, Demonara, MC1 Gamer, Tremendous, Mickey Genver, Ailander Menethius, Steve Cox, Tabletop Minions, Jay Young, Skeleton Flower, and I've just noticed a couple of people have appeared in the chat just now. We've got Sooners Socks, Plastic Sturgeon, we've got Sebastian Blau, oh, and there's Oldsberry again, and Drunken _ Elf, who could forget him, and Albert Cordero. So quite the vast array of audience members we've got here tonight. So, a packed lineup, a packed agenda as well. So I think we should just go straight for the meat, shouldn't we, this week? Because everyone was shocked that there was an Age of Sigmar release that didn't come out of the bowels of just Games Workshop. This is Warhammer Forge.
Yeah, I was so shocked I didn't even look at it before the show, so I have no idea.
Well, you're going to be wowed then, because I'm going to start this screen share. And let's sink our eyeballs and our teeth into this, shall we? So, what do you think of that bad boy?
Well, yeah, it's a big one, isn't it? When it's put against a another model from Age of Sigmar, like a Stormcast guy.
Well, let's look, actually. You can see him next to one of the big, bulky Chaos dudes.
Wow.
Mm.
And you can even look at him next to a regular Korgorath, because this is Skaarac the Bloodborn, Great Korgorath.
Wow.
Look at the size of it. Now, Word has it that this is actually based on an old Kadai destroyer sculpt that never saw the light of day because it was only work in progress, and they've repurposed it into this, which makes sense. And, I mean, just look at it. That is quite monstrous. There's not that much detail on the butt cheeks, actually.
Yeah, those are some quite plain butt cheeks. They are quite plump and succulent, but they lack a bit of detail. They're not as veiny as you would think.
Yeah, there's a bit of highlighting on the butt cheeks there required, I think.
It's quite plain.
The armour's nice and shiny. I wonder how they've got that nice red effect going on there.
It's painted similar to the paint job on the big Khorne Scorpion demon engine and I think the something Slaughterers, which would look a bit beetle-like, like the 40k stuff.
Yeah, neither have been done with, I think ForgeWorld have got clear red, haven't they? Or like Tamiya clear red, which is like quite glossy, maybe.
Yeah, they have got the ForgeWorld paint. I'm not sure, they might be thinner, so they might end up transparent, so perhaps that's what they've done.
Yeah.
I think he could be a good Gorgon model too, for the Beastmen.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. He's got he's got partial hooves, hasn't he? He's got like a hoof there and then some toes attached to the side of it.
Yeah, get rid of the armour. There you go. There you go.
I'm not sure if you're going to want to spend £140 to turn it into that, though.
He's pretty much what I always imagine my dentist to look like before an appointment.
I could definitely see that. So, shall I read out the description, actually? Because I know people always like hearing this. So, a creature of endless hate and unstoppable savagery, Skaarac the Bloodborn is a beast of venerated legend among the devoted of Khorne. He is said by some to be a fallen demon. Others claim he is no more than a mindless beast of prodigious power, while some claim he is a rogue experiment of the terrible arts of the Tsar. And others yet name him as the oldest and most powerful of the Khorgaraths, a murderous plaything mutilated into being by Khorne's own hand. Regardless, Skaarac has rampaged across the battlefields of the mortal realms for uncounted ages, and countless lives have been ended by his savagery. And yet, it is not enough. Well, there we go. It didn't say untold, though. It said uncounted. Countless. I would have liked an untold or a tremendous damage in there. Untold casualties were inflicted.
What, has it got warscroll for him?
Yes.
Oh.
Bum bum bum. So, look at this. 16 wounds, which is 4 more than a giant. So this is like the top end of monster wounds. I think the most we've seen so far is about 20, isn't it? And I think that's the big war mammoth beastie. 4+ save, movement determined by how much damage it's taken, and bravery of 10, which probably isn't going to come up at all. And let's have a look at his attacks. So Burning Blood, which is a ranged attack, 8 inches, so not bad. Hits on a 3, only has 1 attack. And the to wound roll is determined by how much damage it's taken, so it goes from 3+ to 5+, so it doesn't become too bad. And then it can do d6 damage as well, so it's a nice little bonus, but I imagine you're not going to be relying on that, because he also has 2 melee attacks. It's his Brutal Blades with a 2-inch range, and the number of attacks starts off at 2d6 and eventually dwindles to d3 when he's at death's door. Hits on a 3, wounds on a 3, -2 rend, which is quite tasty, and 2 damage for each one of the attacks. So at potentially 2d6 attacks, you're probably going to be getting about 7-ish, 2 damage each with -2 rend. That's going to be pretty tremendous. And the Thunderous Hooves, range 1 inch, 6 attacks. That doesn't dwindle with damage that he's taken. 4+ to hit, 3+ to wound, -1 rend, 1 damage. So that is some quite tremendous damage output, I would say. He starts off at movement 12 as well. And then even when he's nearly dead, he can still move 6. So just on his stats alone, where are we thinking he sits on the tremendous meter, folks?
Well, he's more tremendous than a giant, but he doesn't have the stuffing bag rule. So The giant still is my favourite. But is there any more special rules?
Yes, he does. As a matter of fact, he has towering horror. So if he inflicts damage on one or more enemy units in the combat phase, then subtract 2 from the bravery of all enemy units within 12 inches.
That's pretty good for battle shocks.
Yep. It's not just the unit he's hit, so he just has to kill someone nearby, and then all units are at -2 on their bravery. So if you get him in a big combo going on with your other units, that could be nice. Life Eater. If the attack made by this unit in the combat phase result in one or more enemy models being slain, it will. Then this unit heals D3 wounds at the end of the combat phase.
Oh, that's neat.
Wow.
Neat little extra.
So he's just
he
going to
can
be...
only heal 1d3 per combat, pretty much, as far as I understand it, but that's a neat bonus.
Yeah, that's better than nothing, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he's going to kill someone in every combat with all those attacks.
He should.
Unless you put him one-on-one with Archaean or something.
Yeah, or I roll the dice.
Yes.
Or if which would be my tactic, try and get first turn and focus all fire on this guy. Because he doesn't have great defense. I know he's got a 4-up save, but none of his special rules, give him extra bonuses or protection against shooting, right? So wound a guy and he becomes, less effective, right?
Yes, you do want to be shooting him and using magic on him rather than fighting him in combat because of all this badness here. And then, of course, his ranged attack is still useful when he's in combat, but there's still more rules to come. Infernal Iron. Both sides must reroll successful casting rolls for wizards when within 12 inches of this model. That's before unbinding as well.
That's a nice fluffy Khorne rule, I like it. Khorne needs more anti-magic.
There are some circumstances that could be bad, actually. Because if you're trying to cast a spell that has a low casting total, for example, let's say you need to get 3 or 4 on the dice to cast it because of other bonuses, and you only roll 4, then it's going to be quite easy to unbind. But if this makes you re-roll it, and you get, let's say, 10 on the dice, suddenly it gets a lot harder to unbind.
Yeah, that's true. That is actually true.
So it might not always be good.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, you'd have to pick your spells accordingly, I think. Yeah. Undying Hate. Should he be slain, then before removing it, every model within d6 inches suffers 1 mortal wound.
Oh, that's neat.
So if you surround him with a huge unit of one wound models, they're pretty much all going to die when he dies.
Yeah. I mean, and when you play with the base being the actual point from where it's being measured, then that is quite nuts. And even if you just use the model as a reference point, it's still nuts.
Yeah, even from the model, I mean, he fills up basically the same size as his base, really, doesn't he? His footprint is about the same.
And his butt sticks out so much. Like, all the people behind him are just screwed when he dies.
By the way, we're not even going to try to play Count the Skulls on this guy, because it's going to be too difficult.
I've got a question for Amy. So, Great Sauron versus this Great Korgorath thing. Who would win in a fight?
I don't know. I've only used the Dread Sauron once, and he kind of was a bit... Because he's so big, and with all the scenery, it was hard to move him around. But he was pretty good. I'd say... I don't know. Dread Sauron's pretty mean in combat.
It'd be a tasty battle, that. Can you see yourself painting this model?
Probably not. Probably going to come home with him from ForgeWorld next week, though, but not for me. I'm with my partner. But, yeah.
Does your partner collect models too, then?
Yeah.
What arms does he have?
Every single one.
Really?
Well, it feels like it. Yeah, he's got loads of them.
Word on the street is that he's not quite as good a painter as you are, though.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
Not wishing to stir anything up, but that's what people are saying out on the streets.
Does he watch the show?
Does he what, sorry?
Does he watch this show?
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
I don't think he's watching now, though, because it'll probably kill our internet, so...
Well, we had a couple of comments, by the way, on this guy's appearance, which I'll go to before we finish off on his rules. And people talking about his butts. Malt Gruffelman says Glot's butt has more detail.
It has.
Let's see. Bazooka J. Rambo, mount plasma cannons on each cheek for a 40k conversion. Okay, there we go. Mickey Genver, at least I know he'll have a succulent butt under his loincloth. Yeah, if you just bought it from that camera angle, you wouldn't know, would you?
No.
Let's take over the 360. YouTube Newbie says painting bums is character building. It certainly is. I can attest to that. We can say he's got tremendous butt cheeks on him, can't we? I think that's safe to say.
Pretty much. And if you own like a drill for models, you can simply add an extra detail to that butt really quickly.
You can. I'm not sure. That might be more appropriate for Nurgle, though.
Yeah.
But we'll not get in too much into that.
Let's
have a look at his other rules, shall we? Because he's got 2 more. Undying Hate, we already did that one. The command ability, Call of the Skull Throne. So if Skaarac the Bloodborn uses this ability, it affects all units of Khorne monsters within 12 inches. Until your next hero phase, these units can run and charge in the same turn.
It's really good for Khorne.
Yeah, if you have Khorne monsters in your army, several of them, that is incredible.
Yeah, indeed. Even more because I have seen a lot of bloodletters in my games lately, and they're quite underwhelming on their own, I have to say. Like, my orc boys are more menacing than those bloodletters.
Do they have the monster special rule? Then the keyword?
I don't know if bloodletters... I think they're too small, they're just infantry.
It would definitely apply to Korgoraths.
Yeah.
Oh, is it just for monsters? Oh, I didn't hear that. I didn't
Khorne
listen
monster
once
within 12
again.
inches. So if you take him with a big pile of monsters,
Right.
they'll all be flying in there, like charging turn 1 or 2, certainly, won't they?
Yeah. Well, I guess all your people's bloodletters are still screwed then. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that is quite tremendous overall. So, let's stop the old screen share of that. So, do we think this is just a one-off because they had that unfinished Kadai Destroyer sculpt, or do you think we're going to see more Warhammer Forge, Age of Sigmar creations?
There really ought to be more Warhammer Forge stuff because I love those models. And you know, when you go to Warhammer World, there's just a small kind of cabinet for Warhammer Forge stuff, and there's the rest of the shop pretty much is just 40k stuff, you know. So, and they must sell pretty well with them, right? Because they make awesome fantasy models. But I don't see why they shouldn't.
I hope they do.
I've heard that Warhammer Forge doesn't actually do that well, though. So-
Mostly because they don't have a lot of stuff compared to the rest of the ForgeWorld thingies.
Well, for every one Warhammer monster they release, they're contractually obliged to create at least 150 Space Marine shoulder pads.
Yeah. I mean, I would think they will make more Warhammer Forge stuff in the future just because they have put a ginormous Stormcast statue in front of their headquarters. So, if they're making this like their main thingy, then there should be more releases in the future, surely.
By the way, I've got an interesting visual for everybody. Jay Root in the audience is apparently watching in the bath on an iPad.
Okay.
I assume he's watching on the iPad and he's not watching like while sitting on an iPod in the bath.
Right.
Will you get an electric shock if you knock his iPad?
I don't know.
Do you want to try it?
He said it was an iPad, not an iToaster, so he might be alright.
I had people join me in Hangouts while they were in the bathtub. It was a bit odd.
Something interesting, Bazooka J. Rambo. ForgeWorld does say this model is suitable for a 40k demon too. So perhaps they only want to release these big Age of Sigmar suitable models if they also have the dual purpose. I see people using that in 40k as well.
Yeah.
All the demonic looking stuff, especially Khorne, because even in fantasy, like you had the skull cannon that just looks like 40k creation anyway.
Yeah, that bike. Yeah.
And the armored juggernauts always looked quite 40k to me as well.
And the soul grinders a lot. A-Lord.
Yeah. Oh, Skeleton Flower can't quite top watching from the bath, but he is watching from Sweden.
That's almost the same.
It is. A couple of people warning him not to drop that iPad in the bath, because it probably will have tremendous damage applied to
To
him.
his wallet, wahrscheinlich. I mean...
To at least the iPad, if not his body. MC1 Gamer says measure from the butt. I think that's the new rule he's using in his games now. Instead of measuring from the model or the base, it's just from the butt.
Oh, we have 2 ramps now. That's interesting.
That's really weird. It kicked me out then. And I just refreshed the page.
Maybe it didn't feel you were contributing enough to the show, so it just gave you the boot.
Hey, I'm trying to feed goblins here at the same time. Sorry.
Yes,
So, members of the audience, since we have such legendary painters in attendance, as me, for example, then if you've got any painting technique questions, wondering how anyone painted particular models in certain ways, then let us know, because obviously there was interaction lacking last week due to the technical hiccups. So
How do
drop
I
them in the
paint a
comments.
space marine?
We won't be answering that one. So while we see if any filter in, Mr. M, do you want to just show us what you're working on there?
Good thing, man. Well, I've painted a mangler squig, so I'm just painting the crazy goblins. You can't. They're going to be too small. You're not going to see them. But I've got some pictures ready. I don't know. Do you want to see those now?
No.
Or should we
Yes.
wait?
Let's go for it.
All right.
Go nuts.
Cool.
Did you
Anytime
just
you're
leave your
ready.
brush?
Yeah. Just a screen share.
Were you using metallics?
Hold on. No, be patient. You know you're getting old and things take ages to do.
Brush Lickers Anonymous.
I mean, I paint my hand when I dry brush, but I never lick my brushes.
I'm always licking my brush. Always. It's my habit. You, Amy, do you lick your brush? Come on, admit it.
I think it. I don't know. It
Yeah,
just,
you
it
do.
makes
You
it
see?
flow better. Like with water, sometimes I feel like it's too the paint is too thin. I think it's yeah. I don't know.
All right.
I think human
I
saliva is the way to go.
I shared this everywhere already, so everyone's probably seen it. But this was the banner that Amy was going to paint it for me, but she bottled out, and she was going to paint the Remcon advert on it, but I went for just a basic orc thing there. We the best, copyright 2016. So this is my banner, man. This guy hopefully is going to be standing aloft of Andy's pathetic Stormcast come next week.
That's so much
Crying
better
victory.
than that. It's really good.
I
It
don't know
looks
about
really
that.
cool.
Didn't take that long. Took about an hour and a half while I was listening to Donald Trump videos. Right.
I'm sure it just flew by.
That's what I did last weekend. I played at the opening of the Leicester Riders basketball stadium. So that's me checking the Andy and Rem Facebook page while we were performing in front of 2,000 people.
Naturally.
I'm doing my best to promote Andy and Rem show and RemCon.
Yeah, when we've got Andy and Rem Show T-shirts, you can wear those live on stage.
All right. Well, these aren't my models. I'll come back to those. They're in the Hall of Fame. All right. So, stupid button.
Also, I really hope that someone gets the exact same banner Bira orc that you painted there and paints it the exact same way just to infringe on your copyright.
All right. So these are a brutal mistake I made. So I bought one of those packs of Games Workshop official bases, round bases, and you get these what I thought were cavalry bases, but they're massive. They're too big. I only found that out after I painted them and then stuck my Orc boys on them, Orc boar boys on them. So
Are you sure they're too big? Because boar boys are generally quite stocky. They don't look really too big to me.
monstrous.
I think
well,
they
that's
look alright on them.
Do you have them to hand now, with some way of measuring them?
Yeah, they're 65 millimeter ones. Or something like that.
Well, I've got Vander's Hammerhand right here, who is of course on a big gigantic.
Sorry, they're
base.
75 by 46 millimeters.
So I'm going to measure this and see if it's the same one that you've got.
Right.
So
All these models look better in real life. Let me just say that.
I think you should use one of these spaces for your boar riders.
Okay, so this is about 80 millimeters long.
I can't see because I'm screen sharing.
You don't have to see it. I'm just telling you.
Oh, okay.
It's about 85 long, and yes, I think this is slightly bigger than the cavalry. So I think you've got the right size there.
I think so.
I think that's what you've got to consider. Like, if the actual boar hangs out more than the feet, because the feet might make it look like it's too big, but really, if you look at it a whole, if it comes out, I think it looks okay.
The thing is, Amy, like you and I, we're birds of the same feather. We're looking at things aesthetically, and yes, it's aesthetically pleasing. But my mind is warped right now. It's changing. I am actually thinking, how many of these guys can I fit around any of Andor's models? That's what I'm thinking right now.
See,
And
that's
the answer
why
is not
Black
no.
Orcs will go on 25mm now, so more
Yeah.
can pile in.
Yeah, when you're fighting my dwarves on those tiny little 20 mil square bases.
This is developed a little bit. This is the Mangler squig. It was just the bottom one in the last battle report. Now I've got the top bit. It sticks together pretty nice. It's quite a fun model. The one on top probably looks better than the one on the bottom, and that's the one you actually notice the most. But I went down to kind of base level to take the picture. So I'm just painting the goblins that are hanging off this guy or these guys by their chains. So this guy, these Mangler squigs, they're really powerful in combat. I think they killed about 50 of Andy's zombies before he finally took it down. This is my war boss, Ash the Slaughter. We've all seen him. This time I'm not even gonna attempt to lead the charge. He's gonna be hanging well back.
As his base had more work on it since we last saw him.
Yeah, I put a gloss on the base to stop the thingy earth from Agrellian earth from flaking off, and that didn't really work. So I put another layer of that on, and I've changed all the rock colours. Changed all the rock colours to a dark grey. So I've been doing that all week as well. So I was using the Fang colour, which is a really good colour to use, and I've used that on the stone weapons instead. So you'll know what I mean when you look at some more. So these are my leaders. I've got a Black Orc war boss there at the front with a heavy chopper, and I've got my banner guy at the back, and then the Savage Orc on the right is going to be my Savage Orc Shaman. That's his totem pole, and the advantage is that I get a spell called Foot of Gork, so I can't wait to try out on Andy. Basically, a gigantic enemy, and if you are successful on a roll, you get to do it again. So yeah, that's the thinking behind that. We've got my Savage Orcs, and again, massive base there for the big stabber. That's why you only saw 4 Orc Boar Boys, because the 5th base I've accidentally used on this guy. So yeah. I've actually got more Savage Orcs, but I'm not revealing just how many more. Otherwise, Andy's going to be doing loads of calculations before our first battle, and be in trouble otherwise. So here's my trolls. Haven't redone their bases yet. Do you know, I've been putting all these miniatures in the windowsill, and I swear to God they've faded. They've faded somewhat over months. I wouldn't recommend doing that. Here's me Savage Orcs with bows again, an untold amount of these guys will be entering our first patron challenge, let's say.
Now, I can't see Mr. M's picture right now. Can anyone else see it?
Only there they are. They just popped in. Took a while.
So just a little bit of lag there then. Yeah, because...
No, okay, the Black Orc boys.
And it's gone again.
So, while we're waiting to see if those pictures load up again, then as Mr. M just mentioned, because of our wonderful patrons, we're going to be able to meet up and play our first battle report at some point in the next week. So that's going to be very exciting. I'm sure Mr. Rem's looking forward to another sound beating.
By the way, you can use the full amount of my Patreon money for anything you want. For all the luxuries you will probably have.
Yes, which membership plan did you take?
You can probably buy a pack of like gum or something.
Hello.
Oh dear. Mr. Rem is like a confused old man wandered out into the town. He doesn't know what's going on.
Like every time you speak, Rem, your picture disappears, and we can see the orcs when you're not speaking. It's really weird.
Yeah, a little bit of lag on Mr. Rem's end there, I would say.
Hmm.
He's been licking the brush a bit too much, I think. So, while he's sorting that out, I'll see what the audience have been saying. Lots of members of Brush Lickers Anonymous in there, apparently. People confessing. I've never done it, but apparently a lot of people have. Although I do ruin a lot of brushes, so maybe that's the secret. I've heard brush cleaner is very good for prolonging the life of brushes.
Indeed, indeed.
We have actually had some technical questions on painting from Deandra McCourt. Any advice for non-metallic metal blue and red armor? Would anyone like to take that?
I won't.
Anyone have any experience with non-metallic metals?
No, don't ask me either. Sorry. No. I would like to, but I have no idea how it's done. Never done it.
I've seen people do it mostly with greys for silver.
Yeah, that's what I have seen. It's pretty much like when you color a comic book and you don't use metallic metal, of course. You just like simulate it with grays and whites and shades of blue and stuff. But with reds, I have no idea.
Yeah, so well done. You picked the one topic that we have no expertise on. Good job, audience. YouTube newbie, any advice on using a brush? I can't get much paint on with the stick end. Well, I would suggest, first of all, turning the brush round. If that still doesn't work, then I think the problem is with you rather than the brush. And you've just got no chance. No hope at all. Mickey Genver, he's actually telling newbie to chew it and wait for the end to soften, and then it works better. I haven't tried that. Okay, so while Mr. Rem has disappeared, I believe that Amy has some images prepared from a recently played game of Age of Sigmar, which we can discuss.
I will just get them up. 1 second. So, where's the screen? There we go.
You did that little battle report, didn't you, on Facebook?
Yeah, that was one I did a week ago. So I'll go through that one first. If people probably have seen them. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so quite conveniently actually, Rem just quickly showed one of the models of the guy that I played, Gary. So it'll be interesting if he comes back to that. So basically, last Wednesday, we decided to play a game with my Ogres and my Fire Slayers against his Nurgle Chaos. So it was, before the game we didn't really decide on kind of like balance in a way. It was just kind of, I suppose we kind of went roughly on wounds, but you'll see afterwards when we looked at on the pools and it was actually the same. So yeah, so I got the first 10. So I advanced up with my Ogres. So I decided to put a unit of lead belchers on this side and a unit of lead belchers on the other side here, as well as my Ogres and Iron Guts and some more Ogres on the other side here, which you can't see.
So you've got your shooting units shielded there, haven't you, by the other units?
Yeah, yeah. As I mentioned last week, I've never actually won a game with my Ogres, and last Wednesday was the first time, so I think that's probably because of a big change in how I kind of sort of tactics and how I ran the game basically. So Gary then moved his Chaos up, so he's got a unit of Warhounds, some Chaos Knights, he's got the Archeon model but he was just using it as a Chaos Lord, and some Chaos Warriors, the Glotkin and some Blight Kings and a Chaos Sorcerer at the back. I had my Volkite Berserkers and Auric Hearthguard for the Fire Slayers, the Grimwrath Berserker, and a couple of the guys at the back. Although I kept forgetting all the Fire Slayer rules in a way. So tomorrow, I think I'm just going to play with because I'm playing him tomorrow as well. I'm just going to play with my Fire Slayers just to kind of learn how they play, because really this game was very much dominated by the ogres.
Age of Sigmar, it does take you a while to figure out all the rules for your individual units. Because the base game rules are really easy, you can pick them up in 3 minutes. But your actual units all have their own multiple special rules, don't they?
Yeah, I have forgotten so much while playing, just the tiny rules here and there. By the way, that Glotkin model is not on a base. Is that on purpose to like play with the whole no base exists thing, or is he just not based yet?
I don't know actually. I've never really asked him. I don't know if it's because he's not. Whether he was because I think he had it before Age of Sigmar, so he would have had the original square base. But I think he'd left it off the base for painting, and I think probably just not got around to putting it on a base, or it just makes it easier. I don't know really, but I've never really had any issues with it not being on a base.
Right.
Well, we better find out by next week.
Okay, I'll ask him. So there's just a little cinematic picture there of the ogres staring on at the scary warhounds approaching them. On the other side, obviously the Glotkin and the Blight Kings came over. So what I decided to do was be quite brave and run my Volkite Berserkers in. Now, if people can remember last week, I said I didn't like to play with unpainted models, but I actually broke my own rules and played with these just because I wanted to see how they performed, basically.
Well, you did kind of kamikaze the partially painted ones in there first, so it's okay.
Yeah.
And they're better painted than a lot of models that I have seen at tournaments for a certain other game.
Several other games, actually.
So yeah, they've got a really cool rule. I think it's the horn where you can re-roll one of your charged dices, and I think that managed to get me in, so that was good. On the other side, the ogres and the Iron Guts charged the Blight Kings and the Glotkin. There's a bit of a clearer picture of the Glotkin there, so he's painted that really nice. So I think, to his disdain, unfortunately, in the first combat phase, Iron Guts are very mean. They caused 10 wounds to the Glotkin in the first combat phase. Wow. So that was quite a shock to begin with. I think it was just another picture of the Volkite Berserkers there charging in. Unfortunately, Glotkin lashed back, got some Iron Guts, and the Blight Kings got a couple of ogres there. So then I sent my Firebelly in, and he did Arcane Bolt at the Glotkin, and he died. So that was him dealt with.
That is one rapidly dispatched Glotkin.
Indeed.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, before the game we were discussing about wounds, and I think I was a little bit over than him, but we kind of, because he said, well, I've got the Glotkin, you don't really have any big models. So we kind of went on the fact that, oh, you've got the Glotkin and therefore that's going to be quite nasty. But really, I don't know if it was just pure luck, and I got the first turn, so I was able to kind of get close. And I think by this time it had got to my second turn, and I think I'd won the roll for the second turn. So it was just luck, really, that I was able to charge in and to get all 6 Iron Guts there, and each of them doing 3 damage each. Obviously per wound that they do, it's really quite nasty. And quite ironically, actually, the Firebelly actually finished him off. So, yeah, I guess part of that was just a little bit unlucky on his side, really.
Yeah.
Mr. Rem found himself in a similar situation with Azhag the Slaughterer, where he thought, well, I've got this huge model, I'm just going to go and park it right in front of the enemy, and what's he going to do? And then he got charged by some Black Knights, and they go down quite easy, because in Age of Sigmar, anything can wound anything if you don't use it wisely. If you just think you're invincible and just plough straight in there, you're going to get taken out, no matter what you are.
Indeed.
And you can see quite clearly there that was the case with the Volkite Berserkers. They were quite severely whittled down there. So then the Chaos Knights charged in, attacking the Hearthguard there. They were pretty good. again, I kind of, because it was very ogre dominated, I kind of was, because I'm starting to get used to the ogre's rules now. I was kind of, although I was trying to learn the Fireslayer rules at the same time, it was just, I can't remember much of what they did, but they did pretty well with their shooting attack, which is the Molten Rock Balls, which is pretty good. So, unfortunately, the Volkite Berserkers were killed off by the Chaos Lord, which he was using, and then some Chaos Warriors came in on the other side, charging the Iron Guts. And the Lead Belchers got rid of the Chaos Lord and the final Warhounds as well, which was quite lucky. Another picture there. See, I think this goes back to my point earlier on, where I had these units at the back. Like, I had the Butcher, but he didn't really do anything at all game really. He just kind of slowly made his way across to battle, which I imagine a Butcher would do. Being quite lazy.
Seems to be a lot of things in this game that can dish out punishment but can't take it quite as well, which makes for a very bloodthirsty game, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, he's kept, because another thing that we was talking about was, after the game we were discussing about what he could improve in his army and how, sort of, you know, what things he could change. And one of them was he had this massive unit of Chaos Warriors here which charged the Iron Guts and the Fire Belly. But on all the, they kept the Fire Belly and the Iron Guts held up in combat for quite a few turns because there's so many of them. They've got 2 wounds each, but they don't really dish out as much damage. So you can see there my dice that I'm using as a wound counter. The Fire Belly had 6 wounds on him, and he's got 7. I think he ended the game with 6 wounds because they just didn't dish out enough damage to him. And I think I used the Lead Belchers here to basically finish off the Chaos Warriors there. Just another shot there. Grimwrath Berserker was pretty cool. He's got, I think, a rule where if he can attack again if you roll and it's under how many wounds you did, but I don't think I actually managed to do that with him. And that's pretty much how the game ended. We kind of, Gary, bless him, Gary kind of called it at that, and we had a quick bit long discussion about how we could improve it, and it did feel quite unbalanced. But then when we looked at the polls, it was both our armies were balanced, and so I don't know. Again, is it just luck, or whether it was just?
I mean, it's still a dice game. Like,
Yeah.
it's so such a big percentage of it is just luck.
Yeah.
It's nuts, and I don't know.
There are other issues as well, like unit matchups and deciding who goes first in combat that can play a big role.
Yeah, or you get the initiative twice, like in a row. That's really big, and
If your opponent didn't set up in a way that was prepared for you getting 2 turns in a row.
pretty much
definitely, yeah.
like that's how big models go down. I think a lot. In my last game, we had a Nagash, and the only objective that Nagash had was just surviving the game, not dying, against like my complete Orc army and Khorne Demon army. And there was that one turn where he was like down to like 3 wounds or something at the end because we got the initiative twice, got to catch up with him and almost killed him, and then he flew away. But yeah.
I think what really helped me though was because in all my games with my ogres before, I was only ever using the battalion, which was the 4 Lead Belchers, 6 Iron Guts, and 6 ogres from the ogre battalion box that you can get. But this time, because I bought a 2nd battalion box, so I had the 2 Lead Belchers on either side, and when you get into a certain point, you kind of stop them there, and then they just shoot using the D6 attacks if they don't move. So that proved really powerful, and I think that was really the thing that helped me a lot with this game was getting those shots off and getting the attacks like that.
Right. Do you have some pictures from your next game then?
Yeah, I do. So on Saturday, we played some games which were quite different to that one.
That is a lot of terrain.
It was, yeah. So basically, this is a 4-way kind of scenario called Raiders of the Lost City. Now, I think it was done by one of the managers, the Games Workshop managers, and it's been circulated around. But basically, we played the game first, and we all started in the corner of the board, and really, we realised by like 10-4, we'd hardly got anywhere. And basically the aim of the game is you have 20 wounds of models. You have at least one hero in your choices, and each model counts as one unit. So the aim of the game is you have to find treasure, and when you reach a treasure token, or in the last game it was scenery, but then in this game we decided to use tokens to make it a bit more flow a bit better. You roll a dice. On a 1, the treasure disappears. On a 2 and a 3, 2 to 4, it's nothing, and 5 to 6, you get to pick up the treasure and carry it around. And it lasts for 6 battle rounds, and basically ends when there's only 1 unit left, or either whoever's got the most treasure. So in the first game we played before these pictures, again we were all in the corners, and it took us to turn 3 before we even got to each other. And the player who was the elves, he managed to get 3 tokens in his first turn, and he just stayed in the corner. So it was kind of flawed in that way. So we decided to play a second game and move all the scenery in, pack it into kind of like a really packed city, and everybody starts in the corner to make it so that we're all in melee pretty quick, and therefore people can't hide with their treasure, and just to make it a bit more fun. So it was elves in this corner. We've got chaos in that corner, dwarves, and I had my ogres. So everyone had 20 wounds. So we decided to put the treasure tokens down.
I hope the dwarves lost, by the way, since they're not painted.
Yeah, the dwarves were very unlucky. Bless him, in his first turn, he had 3 treasure tokens in a corner, and he managed to lose all 3 of them.
Just really quick though, was someone like sick in the lower left corner and kind of threw up into that crater?
Yeah, no, basically that's Nagel's Rot, which kind of, it didn't really dry very well. I mean, it is dry, it's not wet, but it didn't. Yeah, it looks a bit weird. Yeah,
it looks really gross. It's amazing. I love it.
Okay, so this was my first turn. So I decided to go for the treasure in the first turn. I was lucky enough to find the treasure here with the fire belly rolling. I can't remember, it was either 5 or 6, obviously. And the other iron guts, these 2, I decided to go get these 2 treasures. I've got my other one behind here. And in their turn, the elves decided they wanted to go and eat some chaos. So the elves and the chaos decided to have a big mass melee in the middle of the board. Whereas on the other side, my ogres managed to get 3 treasure tokens, being quite sneakily. Also, the Chaos Knights decided to go and get some dwarves. So basically, the other players kind of temporarily forgot about the treasure tokens and were starting to attack each other, whereas there's me with my ogres in the corner with all the treasure, which sounds quite appropriate for ogres, I think.
It's always about the scenario, isn't it? You can't take your eye off the ball. Mr. Rems found that out a few times.
Does my sound work?
Yep.
Yeah. I do the same, so I'm way too bloodthirsty in games. I just want to kill people with my orcs and forget the scenario a lot.
Mm.
That scenery is just stunning. I love it.
Yeah. I'll give a shout out. That was painted by my partner Tim. He's the manager at the store, so he's done a really good job with it. I think they look really good, and I think it really makes a difference. I mean, people say it really makes a difference playing with painted armies, but I think it also makes a really big difference when you've got a really nice board to play on as well.
Yeah, terrain is super important to invoke the whole magic that happens on the table and to set the mood for the little movie that goes on in your head while you play. Yeah. I have problems playing on unpainted or bad terrain. Even though bad terrain is really subjective. Like on toilet rolls that are supposed to be trees or something, I can't do that.
CD cases for hills.
Yeah, no, I can't.
Yeah. So my ogre decided to jump onto the Ophidian archway and throw his hammer at some elves. Whereas the other elves decided to corner the poor chaos sorcerer, who didn't survive, unfortunately.
Aww. I love that one.
So then my ogres decided to come through the door and throw some fire and some hammers at the dwarves, which was successful. The Chaos pretty much were wiped out. Again, I think it was more of a kind of rushing in there too quick, I think, and you know, getting quite in vulnerable areas. So the elves decided to scale the scenery and managed to get, I think it got two. Yeah, so he got 2 tokens. Oh, no, sorry, 1 token, and then my ogres managed to pretty much finish off the dwarves, and I had 3 tokens at this point. The elves had 1, the dwarves had none, and the chaos was gone. Sounds a bit like a poem, that did, actually. So my Firebelly decided he wanted to be greedy and get the last piece of treasure, but unfortunately, because he, as you see, he had 4 wounds left. Sorry, he'd taken 4 wounds, so he only had 3 left, and he was taken out. And when a model carrying a piece of treasure dies, they drop the treasure, and the other players can attempt to get that treasure on a 5 or a 6. And he tried, because you can try with different units. Obviously, each model counts as a unit. So he tried with one of these guys and failed, and then tried with the other guy and managed to get it right at the last minute. I think this was in the 6th turn, so he managed to win. No, sorry, not win. It was a draw, so it was 2-2 to me and the elves. But it was really fun, and I think it'd be interesting just to have a discussion about scenarios and how that really makes a difference. Sometimes I think a lot of the games that I've played have been just straight kill each other, and they've been fun, and a lot of times it's gone back and forth, but I think scenarios sometimes can be really fun, and I've not played enough really, and actually I really enjoyed it on Saturday, so I would like to play a lot more. It'd be interesting to play through the campaign books as well, because I've not done that.
Yeah, Amy, another good one is when you change the scenario on the fly. That's often really good fun, you know. If you're seeing that something's playing out too easy or kind of unbalanced, you know, change it on the fly and suddenly the game really opens up in a different way.
Yeah.
The Age of Sigmar does lend itself towards that with the lack of balance, if you will. So you can have one scenario going, and then if it's really going in one person's favour, you can say, well, actually, they've found this secret tunnel entrance into the castle, and if you get a unit in there, then you'll just win regardless. Yeah. You just throw silly things like that in there.
Indeed.
And we like to improvise a lot of scenarios as well. We just come up with them on the fly 10 minutes before the game, and it usually works out quite well.
It does. I pretty much only play scenarios now. I started playing AOS with like just straight up kill missions to get into the rules, and that was okay, but scenarios is really where the fun lies, I think. I also wrote a really big scenario, which is really easy to play, which is called The Crown of Might, and people should play it.
The one with the good luck piggies.
Yeah, with the greased up piggies.
Talking about making stuff up, Andy, you've made up a war scroll, am I right?
I have actually, and we'll get to that in a minute. We'll prepare the audience for that one. Because I think they need to mentally warm themselves up, because it is actually a war scroll for the Golden Colossus.
Grease the audience up for that one.
Yeah, they need to prepare themselves mentally and physically. But I think scenarios probably the most important aspect of Age of Sigmar, because a lot of people complained before they played the game, or maybe when they'd just played one demo game, that it was just a big pile-in the middle, and everyone just fights in a big ball of death, and you lose track of who's in which unit and who's fought and everything. But when you play with a scenario, you can direct people around the table.
Yeah, and it's just so much more fun to like see those little adventures and stories unfold, and not just have like, okay, this unit is now bashing this unit's head in for no reason. It has more of a purpose. It's more driven by something.
The forces get split up as well.
If you have a unit of ogres, let's say 10 ogres against a unit of 50 zombies, you might think, well, the ogres are going to beat those zombies, so I'm just going to walk them in there. It might take me a couple of turns, but I'll do it. But if the scenario is that your ogres need to escape off the table, you actually don't want to get them stuck fighting some zombies. So you'd be avoiding them. It completely changes the dynamics of how you handle all your units, and the way you look at all the enemy troops as well.
Yeah.
It's funny, because the first few videos that were anti-Age of Sigmar that come out really quickly after the game was released, these videos got a lot of coverage. It's people's intrigue in the game. all these videos weren't scenarios; they were straight up battles.
Yeah, or just really stupid.
Yes,
Just straight up stupid.
These power gamers that were doing the videos all, felt like burning their armies. But I don't think they really played the game right.
Yeah, it was just knee-jerk reactions of a lot of people in the beginning. Just like, ooh, look at that, it's not a fair game, and it's so stupid, broken, it makes no sense. But I think you just need to like use your imagination and creativity a lot more than in other games, and that's what I like. The game lets me create the world instead of just giving me like 5 standard scenarios that I play for 60 years and then get bored.
Yeah, it would be 6, but no one ever played the Watchtower because it was horrible.
Yeah.
Amy, you had like what, 4 games? You said 3 or 4 games in that.
Yeah, it was. We first played just a little 20 wound game. Again, no scenario, but that was just to introduce 2 other people to the game, which was good. Then we played that one originally, and then we played that one again with the scene in the middle.
How long did all that take then?
Pretty much all day. I think we started about, well, not all day, but I think we started about 11ish for the intro game for the two beginners. So obviously that took a little bit longer because it was introducing how to do everything. But we finished about 5. But obviously we had like half an hour for lunch, so.
Right, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
What did they go away thinking? Did they like the game?
I think so. Yeah. I think, and it was interesting. You could see that, like at the beginning, myself and Gary, we were having to like basically tell them what to do and remind them of things. But then, like for example, I think it was later on in the game, my ogres had gone, so I was still there, but other people were asking me questions. I was talking to other people, so I wasn't really involved in the game because it lasted forever, that game. But they were able to do it themselves and get on quite well, and that, I think that shows just how quick you can pick it up. And they seem to really enjoy it, so it was really good to see them enjoying it.
And you don't mind me asking, what does your fella say about interest in Age of Sigmar? Because he works at Games Workshop, right? So what's his feedback from what people are saying that are coming into the shop and trying it out?
I think we've been quite lucky because we did have quite a pretty big fantasy following in our shop. It's always, and I think it's probably the case for most Games Workshops, always been predominantly 40k, and it's still the same. But luckily, pretty much everybody that I can remember that used to play fantasy before, and who are still, in the same area. Obviously, with us being a university city, a lot of people have been and gone, but most people are now playing Age of Sigmar and really enjoying it, and so it's been received really well.
Cool.
We've had quite a few comments in the last few minutes. Mr. MC1 Gamer says that people were just too used to playing tournament-style battle line, and scenarios are the lifeblood of AOS, which I think we can all agree with. Wise words from Mr. Mitch, the wise old sage of the Age of Sigmar community. Now, a couple of things. First of all, we've got take 2 on the painting advice, because we couldn't offer any help on non-metallic metals, so the next thing people want to know, wet blending. Can anyone help them with that? Anyone got any red hot sizzling wet blending tips?
Yeah, just lick your brush. Well, dude.
I think. No, go ahead. You know more than me.
I don't know about that. I guess I don't know if what I do counts as wet blending. So I don't really know technically what wet blending is. Like, I mean, for example, the feathers on my Seraphon, which are just using 2 different colours. So I kind of wet blended in a way because the paint was still wet on the feather when I was painting. But to be honest, you could probably do it when it was dry. It was just. I think for me, I kind of wanted to try that way of doing it. So it was just basically progressively adding more of the yellow paint into the green and making sure it's really thin. I mean, Lamy and medium is really good for keeping the consistency right. I can't explain it, and it's weird. Sometimes when I use water, it makes it the paint too runny, and it's almost like you can't get it to sort of the colour on there. It's just too thin. But then Lamy and medium's better. But then I also find that Lamy and medium dries out a lot quicker. So you kind of have to watch out for that on the brush, and also watch out for that, you know, obviously if you are trying to wet blend all together at the same time.
It is good
that's
for
kind of what I
building
do. I
up
don't know if
gradients, isn't it?
Yeah.
The kind of thing a lot of people do now with an airbrush. You can do kind of the same thing with the wet blending, can't you? Where you gradually move from one colour to another.
It's easier on a bigger space.
Yeah, pretty much.
You need a bigger model, I think. If you're doing a very small model, it's really hard to do the wet blending on the model.
Giant wings, perhaps. What on earth is going on Dready's screen there?
I just found out that my my rainbow flag was invisible in my XSplit for some reason, so I started playing around with icons. Let them bounce around.
Okay, now I think the people have prepared themselves. So, we are going to move on to a custom war scroll, and I'm going to want some audience feedback here to tell me not only how tremendous it is, but whether it's too much cheese crammed into one scroll, and whether it should be toned down a bit before it's used on the table. So, here we go. There's the picture of Mr. Golden Colossus there, with the Stormcast underneath his feet. And prepare yourselves. Bum bum bum. So here it is. This is work in progress, by the way. As you can see, there's no description, and it's still got the Chaos Giant keywords that I haven't edited out yet. So still work to be done on it. So 15 wounds. I started off with a giant base and then just edited from there. Save 3+, which is incredibly good for a large monster, but he's made of like Sigmarite or something, so how could he not? Bravery 6, yeah, doesn't really need bravery. He's got 3 different weapons, like the giant, but they're modified. So he's got his golden sword, which has a 3-inch range because he can swing it around. And the number of attacks is based on how wounded he is. So it starts off at 3d6, gets down to d6 when he's almost dead. Hits on a 3, wounds on a 3. -2 rend because it's a big sword, 1 damage each. So that can potentially be an awful lot of attacks. He's got his giant fist, which is the hand that doesn't have a sword in it, so it's only got a 1-inch range. 1 attack, 3+3+, -1 rend, d3 damage, so it's just someone he feels like punching in the face. Then he's got the Colossal Stomp, which has a 2-inch range. He can do 2 of those. He's got 2 feet, it makes sense. The to-hit roll is determined by how wounded he is. It starts off at 2+, gets down to a 6+ when he's almost dead.
Right.
Wounds on a 3, rend -3 because he's just stepping on you, and it does 3 damage. So those are his attacks. Now, here are the special rules I've got so far. Unscrewed. These need new names as well. So whenever he's wounded in close combat on the roll of a 6 or more, then you roll a further dice, and if that comes up with a 6, then someone has unscrewed his little ankle thingy, so he'll start leaking his precious life juices. So at the end of each of his remaining hero phases, he will take d3 mortal wounds. I felt that was more interesting than having it at the end of the combat phase. I don't know why.
Right.
So he'll start to leak if you wound him on a 6 and then roll another 6. So he can go down a bit more easily from that. But he has to be in close combat, though. And then he's super shiny and stuff. So in your hero phase, select one enemy unit within 8 inches of the Colossus, and that unit will suffer -1 to all hit rolls because they're blinded because he's so big and golden and shiny. So, initial impressions of that.
Sounds good. Like, I can't see anything that would just hurt my brain right now too much.
Before you read the special rules, I was going to say there should be one called Achilles' heel, and maybe if you roll a 6, then maybe he just dies instantly or falls over or something. But when you've got it as D3 wounds, and maybe it should be D6 wounds because D3 wounds
might be too harsh for what he is. So.
But the battle rarely goes to turn 5 or 6, so maybe that might be the only way you get to kill this guy.
But if you're wounding him by rolling 6s, he's probably already taken a few wounds if you're in combat with him actually wounding him.
Yeah.
I see.
So adding on another d3.
My games normally run to turn 6, but it's obviously like scenario dependent. So.
What do you think you should have a falling down roll?
Well, I haven't written one in yet, but I think it's going to be very similar to the giant. Because obviously in the film, he does fall over and crush the unfortunate chap who went back to get Hercules' spear.
I think the template should be bigger and the damage should be greater.
Well, if the template was as big as him, that would be quite large. He's quite a beast. So, do you think anything on there is too good? Any of those rules so far? Anything that you would change? Just initial impression, obviously, it hasn't been field tested yet.
I would actually give him an ability that dishes out mortal wounds. Instead of nerfing him, I would buff him a bit, I think.
Well, when he dies, the unit he falls on could take mortal wounds.
Yeah, but maybe he should have a chance to actually, like, on a certain roll, dish out mortal wounds. Like he just crushes someone with a sword or something.
You mean like the giant stuff in pants special rule?
Yeah, maybe like that. Maybe like that.
Yeah.
I think his short sword should be less accurate as well, because this guy is just a giant and he's just sort of flapping his sword about really slowly. So maybe something like he can never go first or something, or maybe a 4+ to hit instead of 3+.
Yeah, 4+ hit on the sword, I could see that, since it does have -2 rend and it's going to get a huge number of attacks as well. Because he has to get it down to 2d6 attacks, you have to have taken 5 wounds off him.
Maybe he would have an easier time, like, hitting bigger units, and less of a chance of hitting a single model or something.
Don't know.
Might be too detailed, but...
Let's see what the audience is saying about that. Well, someone said the Stormcast need a centerpiece. Yes, they do. And I think something like this would be great, because I don't think the... What's he called? The Celestant Prime. I don't think he cuts it, really. He's just a regular Stormcast who happens to be floating on a load of clockwork nonsense and swirly clouds. They need something big and beefy, don't they, like this?
Yeah.
So, YouTube Newbie says he needs a shooting attack. I don't know about that. Because there's not really any precedent set. In the film, he doesn't really shoot anybody.
Maybe he could have some kind of beam that comes out of his eyes.
Maybe he could throw, like, a model. Like, maybe could pick up a hero and just throw it somewhere else. That would be
Actually, you know what? That would be interesting. If his instead of stuff in bag, he picks up a model, and if he successfully does it, he picks it up, and not only does that model die, he throws it like at another unit within 8 inches or something.
Yeah, that would be fun and cause damage, yeah.
Yeah, that could be fun.
Is the model instantly killed, the one that gets thrown?
Yeah. But it would have to be a small model. He couldn't just pick up Nagash and throw it. As fun as that would be.
Yeah, that would be like big monster wrestling kind of level at that point.
MC1 Gamer says give him a 5+ save versus mortal wounds, but he must strike last in close combat. Well, he's slow, making him more survivable, but meaning he has to be the last unit to fight in the combat phase, because he's so slow. Could be interesting.
Could be. Could also be its demise completely.
Brady could be like 10, right? Even though you never use it with monsters.
If he had to strike last, I imagine the enemy would charge literally everything they have at him, because then all their units would attack before he does. So you'd just pile everything into him, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but you'd protect him, wouldn't you? You wouldn't have him. You'd have him kind of standing at the back somewhere, maybe, you know?
I don't know, if he had a 3+ save and 5+ versus mortal wounds, I think he'd be getting straight in there with 15 wounds. Another thing I'm considering is whether he should have like the Stormcast Eternal keyword, because that would entitle him to certain bonuses that Stormcast characters dish out, which might make him a little bit overpowered, in my opinion. I'm not sure he really needs that.
You've got the move right. I like it. I mean, he hasn't got that big a movement. That's cool.
Yeah, his movement, I think I've left that the same as the Giants, because he shouldn't be fast, should he?
Nah.
Let's have a look at him again, Andy, in the flesh, so to speak.
Okay, let's have a look at him in the non-flesh. There he is, surrounded by 5 Stormcast on a very large base. And his sword that was previously bent and now isn't, because of the material it was made of, is very slowly bending inwards with time. So I had to take a saw to that to fix it, and then pinned it in place.
And he's got a little flap on his ankle, hasn't he? You can't see it on that. But
you can't see it there, but on the back of his foot, yes, he does have the little ankle bit from the film that is unscrewed.
Cool.
So, you think with these rules, with a couple of additions, we can give it a try? as it stands right now.
Um,
I think that'll be fun
why
for
not?
our upcoming game.
Maybe the scenario can be bring down the Colossus. Something like
And just shoot fanatics at it.
that.
It could be, because we're thinking that it's going to be Stormcast versus the Oryx in one of our upcoming battle reports, because that's what people demanded when I asked on the Facebook group. The Facebook group which people should have joined if they haven't already, by the way.
Yeah, also because you can see when the show starts and you get the link to the show, which often doesn't appear on YouTube, which is annoying, but you can just go on Facebook into the group and you have the link like at least one day before or a few hours before.
Yeah, people chattering away for the full day before the show. Usually the likes of YouTube Newbie and the really hardcore fans getting there early.
We had a couple of ideas for scenarios, didn't we? So we've got bring down the Colossus. We had another one which was based on the 300 Spartans, and that's the Stormcast are protecting a narrow kind of gully, and they're kind of protecting some straggling humans that the Orc boys are after, but the Stormcast standing in the way, and the Orc boys have got to maybe get a model or two through the Stormcast and into the other side, so they can start slaughtering the humans.
Yeah, we'd have to find a way of doing it so that it wouldn't just be a big scrum in the middle, wouldn't we?
Yeah, there's that. Oh, I thought of another one. I was watching the news about Palestine. Maybe it can be something like, we were here first, and the Orcs are like saying, this is our land, we were here first, and the Stormcast are like, kind of invading their territory, so it can be a kind of who occupies a certain point at a point in the game.
I have played scenarios inspired by current events in the news before. A few of them I had to actually edit videos because I felt they were a bit too close to actual real-world events. I had to take out one or two references. But another scenario that we're going to be doing at some point in the future as well, people seem to like that game we did at Warhammer World between the Dwarden and the Dark Elves, as it has to be pronounced now. So at some point we're going to follow up on that battle, because the elves will want some vengeance since their tower was taken down, and since I've been painting these wonderful treasure markers, I'm thinking that at some point the Dark Elves will want to come and collect that Dwarden your gold.
Mm.
More like my gold.
Yeah, that'll be the name of the scenario. Your gold, my gold.
Yeah.
So these are pretty tasty. I'm going to be doing a video on these soon, by the way. These markers.
Yeah, they're neat.
They're quite delicious. So another thing, as we move towards the end of the show, Mr. Rem, I believe you have compiled some of the finer paint jobs that were posted in the Andy and Rem Show Facebook group this week.
Yeah, now hopefully I won't be booted out of this hangout again. I think Google was getting really bored by my models before, so it kicked me out.
Well, other people's models now, so a bit of variety should keep Google entertained.
Yeah. All right.
Cross your fingers, folks. We're going in.
Here we go.
No steam coming out of your computer yet?
Jesus Christ. I had to quit all my applications, so it's time to launch the photo app again. It's coming. I'll keep you company.
Well, while you're sorting that out, I'm just going to focus the camera on Dready.
Right.
No pressure. Do something entertaining while we're waiting for Rem.
I can make my little banner bounce. See, it's alive.
Yeah, actually, we should take this moment to plug the latest Dread Cave that you did, where I was a special guest.
Did I do one? Oh yeah, I did. It's
Yeah,
true, yeah, we talked about stuff and painted things.
Yeah, so people should go and watch that on your channel, which is linked in the description.
Yes, Gloom Dreading Gaming. The lowest quality on the, I don't know, weekly low quality videos for your entertainment.
Okay, you can put it back.
There we go.
Alright. Yeah, they're the other models I was going to show you. I'll just skip past them. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, get to the general public's models, that's what we want to see.
Yeah, alright, this is one I see. This is work in progress. So these are figures that people have posted on the Andy and Rem Show Facebook page. And when you're not seeing substandard adverts for Andy Palooza, you might see some quality miniatures here. So this is one that I love. I love the colour scheme on this, although it's not finished.
Yeah, quite ceramic.
Yeah, you don't really see kind of white models, but I think it could be quite a challenge to paint that style.
That's interesting, actually. I'd be interested to see like the finished article. Obviously, the base isn't quite done yet.
That one's done by Gary, who I played the Nagel with. So I think he's already kind of pretty much done a full unit. So it'd be interesting to see if he brings them into play again. So yeah, but they look really good, don't they?
It's definitely a unique style. I haven't seen any Stormcast painted like that before.
Yeah. This is a legendary.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
YouTuber from
This
is Victor Keys. Who
that guy's just a painting beast, isn't he?
Painting beast, and his photography is fantastic. Unlike me, he uses a proper background there when he takes his pictures, and that makes a big difference. He's got a superb vibe going on with this Stormcast. With this sort of is it teal? Would you call that colour teal for the armour?
That does look quite teal, doesn't it?
It does.
He's sort of perfected this kind of glowing thing going on. I think it looks great, man.
The whole thing looks like straight out of a comic book. If you would just take away the bases and just have the miniatures, I would have a hard time seeing if those were miniatures or just like pages out of an illustration or a comic book. Right.
I think what he's done in particular that's special is he's made his Stormcast not look like Space Marines. Because of the kind of glowing magic-y feel he's added to him. And he's got his faithful Griffhound next to him there. So if you ever painted a saber tusk, you could probably use the same techniques on the Griffhound there.
Yeah, that is a really well done Griffhound, actually. And the really good painters who've been painting Stormcast take the opportunity with that model, just because it's so different from all the others, to kind of go to town on it, because it's just something to add a little bit of spice to the army.
Well, and I never realised the Griffhounds had a pair of bollocks for a tail.
I'm not quite sure that's what they were going for.
It's fluffy, it's not bollocks.
That's a pair of flapping testes. This one's, obviously, this is a pro job here, isn't it? He's converted the Knight Heralder. Sorry, but it's not got the name on this one. I just took a screenshot on my phone. But you can see it's got a lot of likes there. This one, not on the Andy and Ren page, this one is on Age of Sigmar Facebook page.
So he's converted it, so instead of holding the thing up to his nostril like it was some kind of smelloscope, it's actually held up to his mouth now.
He's kind of yelling into it.
I think it's always a bit weird if you've got a helmeted character blowing a trumpet. It kind of doesn't really work. So he's kind of the wind from the trumpets sort of blowing back in his face then and making his hair stand on end. And
people who say that Stormcast lack personalities, a very, very simple head swap like that, and you can make them however you want, really.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's actually, I don't think it's white. Is that silver? Maybe it is white. I don't know. The grey silver armour.
It looks white to me, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's whitish. Yeah. I
Very
think
tasty.
if I ever do Stormcast, I will do Undead Stormcast and put like skeleton on zombie heads on them. That might be neat.
That could be fun.
And like paint them all rusty and damaged.
You just want to dry brush them, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just wondering how you get the backgrounds like that. Is that a piece of card or is it?
People have professional backdrops.
Right.
They just print them out, don't they?
Say again?
Don't they just print them out?
Yes, you can just print it out. It's a gradient,
I
just
think that's all it
pages.
is.
Oh, cool.
It looks like just a piece of paper that's just curled up in the
Yeah.
background.
It's really simple if you have a working printer.
Oh, that's it. That's it. It's back to me looking on my phone there.
Looking at the Andy and Rem Show Facebook group while live in concert.
So,
No.
I can stop sharing. Can you stop me sharing? Thing is, you guys have all got mice, so I have to do it with my hands. Hello. The thing coming up now.
Soon as Sock says the dreaded Vuvuzela.
The Vuvuzela, yeah.
If that's what the Stormcast used in battle, that would be the most tremendous damage ever dished out
It would.
in any fantasy setting.
I once stepped out of a bus and there was a guy with a Vuvuzela and just started blowing it and right into my face and I almost died of shock.
MC1 Gamer says Undead Stormcast yes in all caps.
I was thinking of putting an orc head on the Stormcast body. That could be cool.
I don't know if the whole posture works with that, as orcs are quite hunched over and Stormcast are those upright guys. Like, I don't know.
And because the armor's so thick, you can't really tell what's supposed to be under there, so you could put like elf heads, female human heads, anything on there.
Giraffe heads.
Yeah, if that's the way you want to go with it. If you want to have like anthropomorphic animal heads.
Maybe goblin heads, though they're going to be too small.
Yeah, but I think you could put an orc head on it if you put it more like in the front, like it looks more hunched. Like you would have to do a bit of like sculpting and cutting with the whole neck piece where the head goes.
I would say, Dready, you need to make some Stormcast with goblin heads for your Best Elves series. If anyone's not seen that, they should probably check out those videos on your channel.
If I get a hold of some Stormcast at some point, I might do some nutty conversions, maybe.
I've been using, what's it called? Flagellant? Flatulent heads? Can you see that?
Yeah, that's pretty tasty, actually.
Flatulent heads.
Yeah.
Did I hear that right?
Like old madmen with beards.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, Remington Steele painting flatulence.
It's
quite an abstract concept for a paint job.
Yeah, that's what I heard was I'm using flatulence. I'm like, what? How can you use that?
Maybe if you're doing like wet blending and you use that to kind of dry it off.
Oh god, that would be terrible.
Oh god, what have we started now? We've got some new audience members in. When I say new, I think they were just late more than anything. If I haven't mentioned them before. The likes of Stu Gibson and Pezapoo, I think, turned up halfway through. And more people saying that Undead Stormcast would be a really good idea. I think it certainly would.
I'm really growing on that idea right now, growing fond of it. I might need to have to do at least one, just to use it in videos for silliness.
Now, unfortunately, because last week the outro song was unfortunately cut short, we're going to have kind of a double musical session this week. We've already had the intro, but I'm going to be performing a little song, and then Mr. Rem is going to have one as well that he's prepared. Now, mine is actually an adapted version of a Reeves and Mortimer song, which was inspired because I was at one of their live shows last week, which is why I couldn't be on this show. So you know where my priorities lie. But it was a potentially once-in-a-lifetime opportunity because it was their 25-year anniversary tour. And it's very, very entertaining. And there's a song about Henry VIII in there, which I have modified to be about Mr. Remington Steele, actually. So I think I will perform that right now. I have to be quite zen to perform. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna tell you a secret tonight. Remington Steele is capable of flight. After playing OS, he grew some wings, flying round Leicester, plucking his strings. There he goes, flying low, flying slow, rolling his dice. Run for your lives. Remington Steele is capable of flight. There you go.
Yay! Love it.
Possibly the best musical performance we've ever had on this show.
Yeah, great talent there. Great
talent. There, Andy. It's up there. I've written one for you, Andy. Actually.
Have you? Is this going to be the official outro song that you're preparing here?
I mean, I think everyone thinks that, like, you know, because I'm a bit competitive when it comes to, you know, gaming, against you especially, probably because I lose most of the time. You know, it's actually just wanted to share my affection for you, Andy, in song.
Well, before you get into that, we should probably first of all thank our wonderful guests for joining us this evening.
Yes, my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much
As
for having us
always.
again.
Dispensing discussion, debate, advice, inspiration, enlightenment to the masses in varying degrees. And of course, thanks to the wonderful audience. A special thanks to our Andy and Rem Battle Report patrons, Cha-ching! I can see at least a few of them in the audience tonight.
Mm.
Definitely a few, especially the higher up echelons on the Patreon, where we've got the Platinum members and the Your Gold and the Sigmarite members. We've definitely got a few of those. So those people get a special thanks, which is basically the only reward they're currently getting, so they deserve at least that, don't they? Now then, on that note, I think if I can get the old screen share fired up for the beautifully photoshopped logo for this episode, which I think could be my best work to date.
It looks quite realistic.
It is. It's like it actually happened. It's like Mr. Remington turned into a giant Korgorath and actually decapitated the rest of us. So, with that, I'm going to turn things over to, well, I think I've dethroned him as the official music man of the show. So, kind of, I'll hand things over to the warm-up act, shall we say.
Okay.
Mr. Remington,
Just
do your thing.
dedicated to my partner in wargaming and friend Andy, and it goes like this. I got a friend called Andy when I was a friend in need. I got a friend called Andy, me and him planted a seed. When I wanted to play Age of Sigmar, Warhammer Fantasy Online, no local buddies to play against, but Andy was a buddy of mine. We had an idea called RemCon. The greatest AOS players came down. Even Andy's Andy Palooza said RemCon's the best tourney around. I got a friend called Andy when I was a friend in need. I got a friend called Andy. Me and him planted a seed.